So, Prof. Grobler, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we walk into the future, can you tell us a little bit about your own background? Where did you grow up?
Thank you, Nick, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of this Future Leadership Program. Yes, I grew up in a small town, Ermelo, in the eastern Transvaal, which is now called Mpumalanga, on a farm. My dad is a farmer there, and I graduated at the high school in Ermelo in 1985.
And tell us, Prof, what was your dream career when you grew up?
Yeah, when I grew up, the first thing that I wanted to become was, first of all, a fighter pilot. That was when I was in my primary school. That's this thing, planes, aeroplanes, technology. I had quite an interest in that, and I think the planes was the first thing that excited me. Later on, more I came going towards engineering, and it developed on towards that, where I probably realized, becoming a fighter pilot, you can get killed too easy. So I rather decided to go for a safer route.
And tell us, who inspired you in your early days?
Yeah, there's quite a few people who inspired me. I think the first one was really my dad. He was a good sportsman and a very competitive sportsman. He was actually doing basically target shooting. And there I really seen the dedication that's needed for somebody to be successful in something. I think that was the first role model. After that, at school, I had one phenomenal teacher that gave me maths and science, and specifically matric, and that was Miss Dyson. And she really inspired me to get into the science environment, into engineering. The way she presented everything and took us on to special tours and so on, to see different technologies and visit plants and so on. That was phenomenal. And I think that really planted the seed to really get in, for me to got involved into technology and eventually became an engineer. Yeah, and lately, I think Elon Musk is for all of us something to look as a person to look at. Being a South African and what he achieved and how he changed the world with his visionary thinking, I think he's still, for many of us now, a role model as well.
And Prof, tell us, looking back over your career, and today you're a globally renowned scientist, you've developed a number of breaking technologies. Was there a turning point? What would you say was the turning point in your career?
I think looking back at we all have one of those or two defining moments in life where things have changed. I think my first defining moment have been when I started studying for my master's degree at the University of Pretoria. Looking back at that stage, I was approached by my mentor at that time, who was also my senior at school. It's quite interesting. When I was in standard 6, he was my matric senior in school, and then he went to the university, and we actually met up at the university again. And when I started with my master degree studies, you know how it goes as a university. You're still a student and you're enjoying life very much when you're a student. And one day he came to me and said to me, LJ, you finished now with your pre-graduate studies. You're now busy with postgraduate studies. And you need to make pretty sure, think where you want to go and what you want to do and why you are doing postgraduate studies. And I think that's the first time when I really start thinking about it, say, hey, where am I really going? And that is really where I started to come up and say, okay, but where do I want to go? I think that was the first turning point, just from a mentally point of view, where you realize, hey, you need to start building your own dream. You need to start making things happen for yourself. And what will that be? And where do you want to end up in the end? Then after that, of course, there were a few defining moments. And this also boils down to whenever there's a crisis. I will say my Next big defining moment was during the first energy crisis in South Africa, when we had our load shedding, where in the Western Cape, where it was total blackouts and we ran out of power, where previously people have said we will never run out of power in South Africa. And there was that defining moment when our request for proposals came out from Eskom to come with emergency programs to solve the power crisis in the Western Cape. And I remember looking at that RFP and say, what are we going to do something very quickly and change the situation very quickly? And that evening, while I was watching actually TV, there came the national lottery numbers came on the TV, and that was came on, and I saw the numbers and I say, but look, if we can put the numbers of the lottery on TV as it comes out, why not display the power conditions of the country, of the network on TV, and inform people to get reactions so that they can switch off when the network is under strain. And that actually gave birth to Power Alert, which ran for many, many years, and it is still on national TV, showing the strain on the network as we speak. You know, so that's, I think, was another defining moment in really where it turned my whole career, because it for good in terms of what came out of that.
And today, Prof, you have developed a groundbreaking food processing technology that is revolutionizing food security around the world. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yes, that is the second one that also came about in, I will say, is one of those defining moments in life, was when I got involved with extrusion. And extrusion has been a pet project initially. I was still at varsity in Pretoria studying, and then I got the idea of pre-cooking a bean, a dry bean, because cooking beans takes you 3 to 4 hours to prepare it and cook a bean. And I thought, no, let's find a way to pre-cook a bean. And that's how I came across extrusion and started to look at extrusion. And over these years, we've developed now our own localized twin screw extruder. We are the only manufacturer of this twin screw extruders in Africa and also the Southern Hemisphere. The rest of these technologies are being manufactured in the Northern Hemisphere. And our whole drive on this whole process is to assist and enable people and companies to produce safe, affordable, nutritional foods from locally produced agricultural products. Now that is a mouthful, but really if you look at what we're doing and why we're doing it, is we are trying to use technology to do local beneficiation, add value to local produce, create local jobs by using that technology, which will lead to local economic revitalization of regions. And we strongly believe that this is the one of the ways where Africa can, you know, build it up again after COVID-19 and with all the damage that have been caused by COVID-19.
Now, I've seen pictures. You already are piloting this process at the Kruger Park. And I believe you can feed a person for R1 a day.
Yes, the technology that we've developed on the extrusion side is a high-pressure cooking process. And that technology is then used to cook in 30 seconds. We can cook raw grains into ready-to-eat products. And the most important thing for us to take note is that we as humans, humans cannot eat raw grains. Grains has to be cooked before we can consume it. So the technology that we've developed is now very suited to process these grains and cook it. And then what we've done also during COVID is we've developed now what we call a food ATM. And the purpose of that food ATM is really to dispense then the ready-to-eat porridges and meals that we've produced with using token systems and so on, where you can get an SMS, send that to a person, and he can go put in the token number. It is validated via a a cellular network, and the food is dispensed to the person.
Right. So, Prof, can you tell us what is driving you today?
Today, the main thing driving for me is really to try and assist in making the world a better place. You know, for us to look at how can we use technology to assist in enhancing the world and creating a more sustainable future for our children to come.
Now, looking into the future, and I know it's a big question, but what would you say, what does the future of leadership mean to you?
You know, leadership for me is, you know, I think the important thing is to where do you want to take and lead somebody, or lead your company, or lead your team. And to do that, I think that one of the most important things that you need to do is to have a clear vision and a picture of where you want to go. You know, there's a saying that say to predict the future, the best way to do that is to create the future. And I think this is where it comes down. You need to have a clear vision of what you want to achieve and why you want to achieve it. The why is often much more important for me than the what, because then there is significance in what you're doing if you know why you are doing it. And out of that comes the strategic thinking of taking then that vision and why you are doing it and concretizing it into something more practical. And I think the last important thing of a leader is that you should be the carrier of hope of your team. So you need to get that picture, that vision, and show them that vision of where everybody is going towards. And then they have a dream and a hope to aspire for.
Now, Prof, what have you learned from your own journey that you consider most important for building future leaders?
I think the most important thing is when you look at something like what's your vision and building that and taking the journey forward, is first of all, is stick to your plan. I think that is the most important thing. We often tend to distrust our plan, and then we start changing and adapting to it too quickly. So for me is stick to your plan and adapt only when really necessary. I think that's the first most important step. And then the other one is also to remember that it's a journey. And the journey is something that you start somewhere, but you're not really getting to an end. You're always carrying on and on. And the most important portion of a journey is it's not about that finishing point. It's not about the end, but it is all about enjoying the journey while you're on the journey. Those are the things that you'll remember in the end.
Now, Prof, when you speak to aspiring leaders, what is it you tell them about social media? How should they navigate social media to build their own leadership brand?
Yeah, you know, I've not really always been really actively promoting my social brand. You know, I've been more interested in and focused on building the brand of our team, building the brand of why we are doing something and what we are aspiring to. And naturally, together with that, you know, the personal brand building becomes a secondary, but it also becomes the natural part of that. So that has been my philosophy always, just the nature of being part of a team. I'm a very strong team person, and I strongly believe in you're much better off and stronger as a team than as a single person. And that's been my belief, and that's why team building has been always very important to me. Using that for social media, I think the important thing these days are to communicate with the different social media platforms out there, your story. And the more important, what are the significance of your story? What are the significance of why you are doing what you are doing? I think that's the most important thing. And then it's also important while you're doing that to really focus on what is your target market and to look at what platforms are more suited for which type of market. You know, if you think about the older people, Facebook, but for the young people, Facebook is too old. That's for the old people. Although there's some of us that think even Facebook is too advanced for what we are trying to do.
Now, Prof, what is your advice for future leaders when it comes to challenges? And maybe thinking about the challenges you've encountered in your career, what would you tell future leaders? What are some of the biggest challenges they should expect to encounter in their career?
You know, if we're looking at challenges, you will always have challenges. You will always have situations where you come to a dead end, where you think, wow, what should I do now? How should we get around this challenge? And I think that is really which distinguishes good leaders and excellent leaders from the rest. When you're at that crossroad, to really be able to assess the situation, look at clearly what are the core issues at stake, and to really simplify those at just looking at the core essential issue, and then find a solution for that. And then, of course, it means persistence, perseverance, and never give up.
And Prof, if you were to design a curriculum for future leaders, what are some of the new skills you would want to factor in?
Yeah, this is a very interesting one. You know, when if you're looking back at what I was taught coming through university and how my view on how things work have changed over these years. It's actually, I think I made a few 360-degree turns over these years in terms of that. And what I mean by that is it's important for us that you understand the business. You need to understand the environment that you are operating in. And what I mean by that is you need to understand the operating environment of each country and each type of business that you operate in. Those are the important things which are actually external factors that have massive influence on where you go and what you can do and what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. Of course, all of this within the law, of course. And I think those are the kind of external skills and attributes that you need to look at how to operate within that. And then, of course, if you're looking at taking it closer to home, where you're looking at the company and the business, for me, that there's important, what are the values that are driving you? Those are the important things. What are your core values that are driving you as in a person? And what are the core values that you embed in your team going forward? And then for sure, I think if you want to be a future leader, important thing very, very much is you have to be a team player, because you are part of the team. And, you know, a team is only as strong as its weakest link.
So, Prof, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
I think the first mentee that came to mind is one of my PhD students. It's actually the first PhD student that completed his PhD studies with me. And he is now head of the energy division of one of the big smelting companies in South Africa. The second one is actually Donnie Foster. Now, he was my first master student, and he was in my final year class when I just started lecturing at the Northwest University. So at the end of the year, he came to me and he said to me, he wants to do a master's with me. And I said to him, Donnie, I just started lecturing. I haven't thought about a master project yet, but give me some time, I'll think about it. The next day he was back again and he said to me, have I thought about it? And I said to him, Donnie, yes, I think we should go and build our own twin screw extruder. And he looked at me and he said to me, that sounds like a good idea, but what is an extruder? And that is really where it started. So yeah. we call that our moment of ignorance.
Right.
because we literally started, he had no idea what an extruder is. And fast forward that now, that was in 1998. Now in 2021, we're sitting with a manufacturing company. We are the only manufacturing company in the Southern Hemisphere that built twin screw extruders. And as we speak, those extruders are being installed in various countries. We have a plant running in Canada. We're busy with a plant in Pakistan. We have a plant running in Northern Ireland. And this year, the year of 2021, we are going to be involved in plant installations of our extruders in 12 countries in the world.
Okay.
And Donnie Foster, he is now the CEO of the company. So he's my boss as well in the company.
All right. So, Prof, in your looking back over your leadership journey and maybe your learning journey, are there any role models of leadership that you would recommend future leaders should learn from?
My first, I will say, business role model that I've looked up was really Richard Branson from Virgin Airlines. And for me was because just the way he was thinking, the way he looked at how you can really come in and change the whole status quo and come up with disruptive technologies and change the status quo. I will say that was my first one on just the way he came in and how he changed the airline industry. From a business consulting point of view, I think it's very good for people to go and look at Simon Sinek. You know, he's a well-known business consultant, and really you can listen to him and you get a lot of insight from how to do things and how businesses work and how to take on different angles and look at different things and how to approach it. And yes, for me, still, I've mentioned it earlier as well, Elon Musk, I think also just the way he's thinking, he's completely thinking, you know, out of the box. He's completely looking at things completely differently. And I think that is what's making the way he's doing it phenomenal. But there's something else that you should learn from him. You always go back to first principles. So he's back himself, going back to science, going to the fundamentals of science, and build his solutions from there. And I think that is really one of those things that you can take back from what Elon Musk is doing, is that it's all about the fundamentals and it's all about keeping the thing simple. And by keeping it simple, you can actually solve a very complex problem.
Now, Prof, how can our listeners connect with you and where should they follow you?
Well, you know, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And then also if you go to the websites of, first of all, our company, CFAM Technologies, and our website is cfaminternational.com. And then also the mechanical engineering website at the Northwest University, there's also their connection. So those are, I will say, the three main areas that people can connect with me.
And last but not least, Prof, is there one piece of advice that you would really like to convey to future leaders that they should implement in their own leadership and their life?
I think important to summarize, you know, you need to have a dream. You must have a dream. Then you need to follow your heart. You really need to enjoy and love what you're doing. Otherwise, you are not going to enjoy the journey, because it's part of a journey. You have to build a good team around you and be persistent and never give up.
Well, Prof, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership, and good luck with the food revolution.
Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it.